When Lucas casually agreed to play an innocent game at a friendly gathering, he never imagined it would expose his wife's deepest secret. One careless slip of the tongue unraveled 10 years of trust, leaving Lucas with undeniable proof and a burning question: can you truly know the person you love most? Adrian finished pouring drinks for his guests, the pleasant sound of ice clinking against glass echoing gently through the cozy living room. These evenings at Adrian and Selina's home had grown into cherished moments, a comfortable gathering for friends who shared years of memories. Tonight, though, something felt slightly off, a subtle tension Adrian couldn't quite define. Selina sat beside him, gracefully tucked into the plush corner of the couch, her raven black hair cascading softly over her shoulders. Her smile, usually effortless and genuine, seemed slightly strained. Adrian noticed the shift but dismissed it, thinking perhaps she was simply tired after a long day at work. Across from them sat Carter, Adrian's closest friend since university. Carter's infectious laughter and easygoing demeanor had remained unchanged through the years. His wife, Mia, smiled indulgently, used to Carter's playful nature. Beside her sat Jade, a recent acquaintance who worked alongside Selina at an advertising firm. Jade had quickly become a regular guest, bringing along her relaxed boyfriend, Troy, whose calm presence complemented Jade's bubbly personality. The night began with light-hearted games, laughter filling the room as the group became more animated. Adrian relaxed into the familiar rhythm, comforted by the warmth of friendship and good company. The conversation flowed from playful banter to humorous anecdotes, leaving everyone in good spirits. As the evening deepened, Carter suggested a game of Never Have I Ever. The suggestion elicited a mix of playful groans and eager nods, and soon everyone held their drinks expectantly. Adrian watched Selina closely, noticing a faint flicker of anxiety cross her face as she glanced down at the cards stacked neatly on the table. When it was Selina's turn, she slowly drew a card, pausing momentarily before reading it aloud. Her voice carried an odd hesitation that Adrian immediately noticed, causing his heartbeat to quicken slightly. With a brief pause, Selina softly spoke the phrase, "Never have I ever cheated on my spouse." A tense silence enveloped the room, replacing the earlier laughter. Adrian felt his stomach tighten as he watched Selina slowly raise her glass and take a small, deliberate sip. His pulse quickened, his mind racing, disbelief and confusion clashing within him. He tried to rationalize the action, to dismiss it as a misguided joke or a simple misunderstanding. But the troubled look in Selina's eyes made him question everything. The uncomfortable silence was broken by Carter's attempt at humor, though it fell flat, failing to restore the earlier jovial mood. Adrian forced a strained smile, trying desperately to mask his unease. Selina mumbled an excuse about it being just a silly joke, but her words lacked conviction, deepening Adrian's discomfort. The night ended earlier than usual, the guests sensing the awkwardness and making polite excuses to leave. As Adrian bid farewell to his friends, Carter paused briefly at the door, offering Adrian a supportive glance that acknowledged the tension he had noticed. When the house was finally empty, Adrian and Selina silently tidied up, their movements mechanical and distant. Adrian's thoughts swirled chaotically, attempting to interpret Selina's unexpected confession. The bond they shared felt suddenly fragile, threatened by uncertainty. As they ascended the stairs to their bedroom, Adrian wrestled with his thoughts, struggling to articulate the questions burning within him. Each attempt at confrontation fizzled out, overridden by fear of the answer. Perhaps he had misunderstood. Perhaps Selina's actions were simply impulsive and meaningless. In their room, Selina turned away, quickly slipping beneath the covers, distancing herself physically and emotionally. Adrian lay awake beside her, staring into the darkened room, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. Sleep evaded him, and anxiety gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. He couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had marked a turning point, a crack in their marriage he could neither ignore nor repair easily. The morning arrived slowly, bringing little relief. Adrian found Selina already awake, silently making coffee in the kitchen. The air between them felt strained, heavy with unspoken words. Selina avoided his gaze, carefully placing a mug of coffee on the counter for him without speaking. Adrian finally broke the silence, asking directly about last night's unsettling moment. Selina hesitated, offering vague reassurances that felt hollow. Her evasive responses and defensive posture only intensified Adrian's doubts. His persistent questioning eventually forced her into admitting it was a mistake, a meaningless slip in judgment. Yet Selina refused to reveal specifics, fueling Adrian's growing frustration and suspicion. Their conversation spiraled into argument, bitter and unresolved. Adrian, emotionally drained and hurt, grabbed his keys and left the house, needing space to process the betrayal he now felt was undeniable. Driving aimlessly through familiar streets, Adrian grappled with a profound sense of loss. Trust, once foundational to their marriage, now felt shattered, leaving him adrift. Eventually, he found himself outside Carter and Mia's home, seeking comfort and clarity from trusted friends. As Adrian stepped out of his car, he knew one truth with certainty: his life had irreversibly changed. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen, pulling me from another restless night of sleep. A wave of discomfort settled in my stomach as memories of yesterday's revelation surged back. Slipping on a sweatshirt, I headed downstairs. Alicia stood quietly by the coffee maker, her back towards me, the gentle hum of the machine breaking the awkward silence. She turned at the sound of my footsteps, her expression guarded. She offered a cup of coffee with trembling fingers. I nodded in silence, noticing the shadows under her eyes, proof she'd slept as poorly as I had. Taking the cup from her, our fingers brushed slightly, and she pulled away quickly, as if my touch burned her. The silence stretched, thick and oppressive. My mind churned with unanswered questions, creating an uncomfortable tension that hung heavy between us. Finally, I summoned the courage to confront her. Taking a deep breath, I calmly mentioned that we needed to address what had happened at the party. Alicia visibly tensed, her eyes reflecting a mixture of panic and resignation. She began to speak, claiming it was merely a bad joke fueled by alcohol, something insignificant. But her hesitation spoke volumes, and my suspicions grew stronger. I pressed again, demanding honesty. Her resistance crumbled under my steady gaze. She admitted it quietly, describing it as a foolish lapse in judgment, a meaningless incident that would never be repeated. Her casual dismissal of such a significant betrayal felt like another sharp stab to the heart. Her confession hung between us, altering the fabric of our relationship irrevocably. My mind raced, each thought punctuated by feelings of disbelief and anger. I demanded specifics, details she was reluctant to share. The more I pressed, the more defensive she became. Excuses flowed freely from her lips, but the truth remained elusive. Her unwillingness to fully disclose what had transpired amplified my anger. Eventually, the argument spiraled out of control, accusations and defensive denials bouncing off the kitchen walls. Exhausted from the fruitless confrontation, I abruptly grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as I climbed into my car and drove aimlessly, searching for clarity. After driving through unfamiliar streets, my subconscious led me to Benjamin and Clara's home. They had always been supportive, and I instinctively sought their calming presence. Benjamin greeted me at the door, immediately noticing my distress, and invited me in without question. Settling into their comfortable living room, I finally broke my silence, summarizing the painful revelation of Alicia's betrayal. Benjamin listened carefully, his expression shifting from concern to shock. He asked what my plans were, offering support but urging caution in any decisions I made. I admitted feeling lost and conflicted, unsure if forgiveness was possible or if trust could ever be rebuilt. Benjamin, ever pragmatic, advised me to take time to carefully consider the situation, stressing the importance of clarity and self-respect above all else. His words resonated deeply, giving me much-needed perspective. Returning home felt daunting. Upon entering, Alicia waited anxiously, her face streaked with tears, eyes swollen and red. Her demeanor was one of desperation, pleading for reconciliation, but I remained distant, unsure how to proceed. She promised repeatedly to rectify her mistake, begging for another chance. I felt trapped in emotional turmoil. Her pleas stirred a mix of sympathy and resentment within me. Memories of our years together clashed with fresh feelings of betrayal, creating an internal battle. I requested space and retreated upstairs, needing time alone to process the depth of what had occurred. Lying in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, I reflected on our past together, the memories we had created, and the trust one once had in her. The harsh reality that our relationship had fundamentally changed was difficult to accept. My heart ached, but a newfound determination slowly began to form, fueled by anger and hurt. Sleep remained elusive as I considered the uncertain future ahead. My mind spun with plans, potential outcomes, and the painful acknowledgement that things could never return to how they once were. The stark realization settled heavily on me. Our marriage stood on the brink, and my decisions now would shape both our futures. After that evening, Lucas' life turned into a tense dance of silent avoidance at home. The walls of their once cozy apartment now felt suffocating, echoing with unspoken accusations. Olivia moved around carefully, trying not to provoke further confrontation, but Lucas couldn't shake off the image of the messages he had seen. Each shared dinner, once an enjoyable routine, now passed in strained silence, filled with an uncomfortable awareness of betrayal that hung thickly in the air. Days passed slowly. Lucas immersed himself in work, finding a hollow solace in the demands of the office, while Olivia increasingly claimed to stay late at her firm, providing flimsy explanations that did little to reassure him. The seed of mistrust grew steadily, becoming a thorny plant whose roots wrapped around Lucas' thoughts, clouding his judgment and robbing him of sleep. One evening, Lucas sat alone, staring blankly at the muted television. His phone buzzed softly, bringing him back to reality. The screen displayed a message from Olivia, claiming another late night at work. With resignation, he tossed the phone aside, feeling the weight of suspicion deepen. Driven by an overwhelming urge to uncover the full truth, Lucas decided he needed clarity, proof beyond just messages, something tangible that would erase any lingering doubt. The next day, under a gray, drizzly sky, Lucas found himself standing outside Olivia's workplace. He parked his car at a discreet distance and watched the building's entrance, feeling both ridiculous and justified. Hours crawled by, the hum of the rain against his windshield providing a melancholy soundtrack to his vigil. Just as he began to question his sanity, Olivia emerged, looking around nervously before quickly walking toward the parking lot. Moments later, a dark blue sedan pulled up, and Olivia got in. Lucas' heart pounded in his chest as he recognized the driver immediately. It was Adrian Clark, Olivia's supposedly harmless co-worker. Without thinking, Lucas started his car and carefully followed them through city traffic, maintaining just enough distance to remain unnoticed. They navigated the crowded streets, eventually stopping in front of a small, upscale restaurant hidden away on a quieter street. Lucas parked further down the block, his throat tight as he watched them enter, Adrian's hand placed lightly on Olivia's back in a gesture far too intimate for mere colleagues. Lucas sat frozen, his thoughts racing. Anger battled with a sense of profound loss, realizing the depth of Olivia's deception. He debated confronting them immediately but knew the confrontation required planning, proof that was undeniable and clear. He took a deep breath, calming his nerves, and formulated a plan. He needed solid evidence, something they couldn't deny or explain away as innocent. The next day, Lucas contacted a private investigator recommended by an old friend. The investigator, a woman named Diana Hart, listened intently to his story, her eyes sharp and understanding. She assured him discreet and thorough results, promising to deliver tangible proof swiftly. Lucas felt a small relief, knowing that professional help was now involved and that the weight of investigation had partially shifted from his shoulders. Days passed with agonizing slowness. Lucas tried to maintain a facade of normalcy at home, observing Olivia closely yet subtly. He noticed more small details he had previously overlooked, how her eyes shifted away from his gaze, the hurriedness in her movements, the extra care she now took with her appearance on certain days. Each observation felt like another confirmation, another tiny cut adding to his emotional wounds. Finally, Diana Hart provided Lucas with irrefutable evidence, photos, timestamps, and records clearly demonstrating Olivia and Adrian's romantic involvement. Each image felt like a punch, the reality harsher than he anticipated. Diana advised caution, reminding Lucas that confrontations driven by raw emotions rarely ended well. He listened, knowing she was right, yet struggling to contain the fury boiling within. That night, Lucas sat alone, reviewing the evidence repeatedly. His anger gave way to determination. This betrayal wouldn't define him. It wouldn't control his life. He would face Olivia with the strength and dignity that she had denied him. A confrontation was inevitable, but Lucas would ensure he did it on his terms. Taking a deep breath, he began preparing for the conversation that would finally close this painful chapter of his life. Lucas carefully planned every detail of the confrontation, choosing to handle the situation strategically rather than impulsively. The weekend arrived, gray clouds covering the city as if reflecting his mood. Olivia remained oblivious, making casual plans for dinner with a supposed friend, which Lucas now understood was just another cover story. He feigned disinterest, nodding absently as she described her fabricated plans, bitterness building quietly within him. As soon as Olivia left the apartment, Lucas began meticulously setting the stage for what would be the final confrontation. He gathered printed copies of Diana Hart's detailed investigation, placing them neatly on the dining table. The photographs were arranged chronologically, presenting an undeniable narrative of betrayal, dinners, covert meetings, secretive embraces caught in stark black and white images. Lucas stared at the evidence, feeling a painful tightness in his chest, the weight of each photograph magnifying the depth of his heartache. With preparations completed, Lucas paced the apartment, anxiety twisting his stomach as the clocks slowly ticked toward Olivia's return. Hours later, the sound of keys jangling in the lock echoed sharply, breaking the heavy silence. Olivia entered, her smile fading instantly as she registered the seriousness on Lucas' face and the deliberate arrangement of papers and photos on the table. Olivia stood frozen, her expression shifting rapidly from confusion to realization, and finally settling into guilt-ridden panic. Lucas calmly indicated the evidence, his eyes filled not with anger, but with profound sadness and disappointment. Olivia attempted feeble explanations, each word sounding hollow and inadequate in the face of undeniable proof. Lucas listened silently, allowing her to exhaust every justification, each new lie deepening his resolve. Finally, with quiet firmness, Lucas declared the end of their relationship. He refused to raise his voice or lose control, maintaining dignity despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. Olivia broke down, pleading for forgiveness, promising that it was nothing more than a foolish mistake. But Lucas recognized these familiar pleas now for what they were, empty and desperate attempts to avoid accountability. Lucas instructed Olivia to pack essential belongings and find temporary accommodation immediately. Though it pained him deeply, he knew distance was necessary for healing. Olivia, tears streaming down her face, complied without argument, aware of the irreparable damage caused by her own choices. As she moved quietly around the apartment, packing a small suitcase, Lucas stood near the window, gazing out at the dim city lights, numbness settling over him. Once Olivia had left, the apartment felt unbearably empty yet strangely liberating. Lucas sank into the sofa, the silence wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. Though exhausted emotionally, a flicker of relief sparked within him. He was no longer trapped in uncertainty, no longer bound to falsehoods and hidden truths. It was a painful step forward, but a step nonetheless. Over the following weeks, Lucas gradually rebuilt the rhythm of his daily life. Work became his sanctuary, offering structure and a distraction from lingering emotional turmoil. Friends, sensing his quiet distress, provided gentle support without prying too deeply. He appreciated their sensitivity, finding solace in simple acts of kindness, a shared coffee, a quiet evening of movies, the subtle comfort of companionship without expectation. Occasionally, Lucas would reflect on his relationship with Olivia, questioning how it had reached such a bitter end. These reflections, while painful, were crucial in helping him process and accept reality. He understood now that the person he had once trusted had changed, or perhaps he had never truly known her at all. Acceptance was gradual and hard-earned, but it offered a path toward genuine healing. Lucas also maintained occasional contact with Diana Hart, expressing gratitude for her discreet professionalism. Her role had been instrumental in providing him the clarity needed to move forward decisively. Diana offered sympathetic support, affirming Lucas's decision to end the toxic relationship decisively. Slowly, Lucas found himself looking toward the future rather than dwelling on the past. Each passing day brought more strength and resilience, helping him redefine his identity separate from Olivia's betrayal. While the scars of mistrust lingered, Lucas felt prepared to rebuild his life, understanding clearly that true happiness required authenticity and mutual respect, qualities he vowed never to compromise again. In the weeks that followed Olivia's departure, Lucas gradually adjusted to the unfamiliar quietness of his apartment. The spaces that had once resonated with shared laughter and whispered conversations now echoed with solitude, but Lucas began to embrace this newfound peace. Each morning brought a small step toward healing, even though memories of the past occasionally surfaced, reminding him of wounds not yet fully healed. At work, Lucas immersed himself completely, finding a comforting rhythm in routine tasks and new projects. His colleagues, aware of a subtle change yet respectfully uninformed of details, provided silent encouragement and support, easing his transition into this new chapter. Amid reports and meetings, Lucas rediscovered a sense of personal purpose, one that was free from the shadows of doubt and deception. Lucas maintained regular contact with Diana Hart, whose thorough professionalism had been instrumental in guiding him through one of the most difficult phases of his life. She periodically checked in, offering reassurance and practical advice for managing residual legal and emotional challenges. Lucas appreciated Diana's genuine concern, seeing in her a steadfast ally who had provided clarity when he needed it most. The apartment gradually transformed from a place associated with betrayal into a sanctuary reflective of Lucas' evolving identity. He replaced familiar decor, opting for new colors and rearrangements that represented renewal rather than past attachments. Slowly, each room began to feel authentically his own, a physical representation of his emotional recovery and newfound independence. Friends played a significant role during this transformative period, their companionship becoming invaluable as Lucas navigated complex emotions. Casual dinners and weekend gatherings offered him warmth and gentle reminders that life continued beyond personal loss. Mark and Tessa, longtime friends who had initially introduced Lucas to Olivia years ago, were particularly supportive, carefully avoiding awkward questions yet clearly communicating their unwavering friendship. With the passage of time, Lucas started to explore activities that previously held little appeal due to his relationship's demands. He attended local events, joined a weekend hiking group, and even enrolled in photography classes, something he'd long wanted to pursue but had continually postponed. These new experiences enriched his life, connecting him with people who shared similar interests, and gradually filling the void left by the past. Throughout his personal evolution, Lucas occasionally received attempts at communication from Olivia, brief, remorseful messages that spoke of regret and pleaded for dialogue. Lucas, however, knew that reopening those lines of communication would undermine his progress. He chose silence as his response, not out of resentment but from a place of self-preservation and clarity. It was essential for his own growth to remain firm in the boundaries he'd set. Months passed, and one crisp autumn afternoon, Lucas found himself at an outdoor photography exhibition, surrounded by vibrant snapshots of life captured in candid, fleeting moments. As he examined each image, appreciating their spontaneous authenticity, he felt an unexpected yet profound connection. These photographs mirrored his own journey, moments of vulnerability, joy, sorrow, and ultimately growth. The clarity of these captured truths echoed his newfound self-awareness and resolve. It was at this event that Lucas met Emma, a fellow photography enthusiast whose bright smile and passionate descriptions of each photograph immediately caught his attention. Their conversation flowed naturally, transitioning from discussions about composition and lighting to sharing personal anecdotes and laughter. Emma's open-hearted sincerity was refreshing and resonated deeply with Lucas, subtly reminding him that genuine connections were still possible. After that day, Lucas and Emma began meeting regularly, first in the context of photography outings and gradually in more personal, meaningful settings. Though cautious, Lucas allowed himself the luxury of hope, seeing in Emma a person who valued honesty, integrity, and mutual respect, the very principles he had vowed never to compromise again. With each interaction, Lucas felt his trust in people and relationships slowly restored. Olivia's betrayal, while painful and formative, no longer defined his perspective. Instead, it had become a lesson, teaching him the importance of authenticity and careful emotional investment. As Lucas moved forward, he understood profoundly that healing was not linear. It involved setbacks, breakthroughs, and moments of quiet reflection. Yet, standing amidst new friendships, personal achievements, and the potential for genuine romance, Lucas realized that he had reclaimed his narrative fully. This was not merely the end of a painful chapter but the beginning of a promising new story, written with courage, resilience, and newfound wisdom.